Hi everybody. In this video I would like to make a quick comparison between two editions of the Visconti Sforza facsimile decks. This one here is by Monumenta Longobardica from the early 1970s, so that's a vintage one. This one here is from Meneghello. Now I purchased this recently, but I can't really be sure when their particular batch was produced. So I can't say whether this particular batch of the Visconti Sforza by Meneghello is the same as, let's say, one produced by Meneghello or published or distributed by them 20-30 years ago. I really can't say. So I can only comment on the Meneghello edition of the Visconti Sforza facsimile deck, which I purchased last year, and actually no, 2 years ago, 2016. This box is a 2017 edition, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a separate video. And this one here, I also have a working theory that this might be one of the earliest, if not the earliest, facsimile publication of the facsimile of the Visconti Sforza. Again, I'll talk about that in a separate video dedicated to this deck. So for now, let's have a look at the cards, which are very, very similar to each other. So I will not go through the whole deck, and I'm not even going to go through the whole major arcana. I'll probably just use one or two cards. As you can see here, the cards that I'm missing here are clearly indicated with this very rudimentary sketch here, which I really rather like, because as a study and reference deck, this blatantly remind me that these three cards are not in existence at the moment, and that this one here have this couple of swords missing its gold leafing there. So let's put this aside and talk about that further in a separate video. So these are the majors, so I'll put that in. Let's start with the Fool. So this is, so let's have a look at the booklet. Maybe the booklet has something to say about which edition this is. 1996. So the booklet is 1996. Does that mean that this deck belonged to the 1996 printing batch or publication batch? I really don't know. So I'll put that in there. I purchased this in 2016, I believe. So I'm just going to take the Fool out. So it's very similar in that they're both very unlaminated, and again, as a reference and study deck, I don't mind that so much. I can actually feel sort of this kind of graininess, almost like I'm feeling the dried ink on the card. I'm not sure what I'm feeling there, but I could feel that graininess there. And here it's less grainy. So here it feels more leveled. Now whether that's a function of the actual design, or whether that's a function of time, because this one here is obviously, or even if this one is from 96, that's from 74, I think. Let's have a look. I believe it's 74, 73, 74. So again, we'll talk about that in a separate video. So let's focus on comparison. Cardstock here is thicker. Meneghello is on the right. The Monumenta Longobardica is on the left. The reason why I'm comparing these two are because these are the two that I have that are very similar to each other. I would be very interested in seeing a comparison between one of these with the vintage US Games edition from the 1970s as well. It seems like US Games in the early 70s, it seems, I'm not making any claims of any firm knowledge, but it seems to me, just judging from what I've read or what I've saw, it seems like US Games went around Europe to obtain agreement to distribute under the US Games banner, US Game Systems, whatever they're called back then, to distribute a variety of tarot decks. So this is one of them. So like the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which was printed by A.G. Mueller, for example, which is the exact same deck that was distributed by Rider in the early 70s. Monumenta Longobardica was the one who in charge, or who under which banner, whether they printed it or whether they published it, I don't know, because I suppose there's printing, there's publishing, and then there's distributing, right? So it seems like it's the same deck produced by the same people in Italy. On the one hand, it was published by Monumenta Longobardica, and on the other hand, it was US Games. So again, we'll talk about that in a separate video. So I suspect that US Games might be quite similar to this one here. This is very, very thick, much thicker than this one here, as you can see there. And this one here is a lot warmer, and so the edges here is more yellowish, while here is more grayish cream. And so it basically looked like the red has been turned up on this one here and turned down here. So this is cooler and that's warmer. It has more of a sort of orangey, yellowy, red hue and the skin color here, as well as on the gold, as well as on the edges. Everything else is the same. So the Monumenta Longobardica has a brick red that is slightly lighter, and the Il Meneghello is slightly darker. So that's that. So if we were to stack them together, definitely thicker on the Il Meneghello side there. They're both available. I'm not quite sure, because this is vintage, I'm not quite sure what the going rate for that at the moment, but the last time I looked, they are about the same price as the Il Meneghello edition. And so that's it, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video, talking specifically about each of these decks separately.